And then like they also brought in Brant Brown, and I think their thinking was is like Brant Brown had worked with Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman with the Dodgers, and he worked with a lot of good hitters, and they thought maybe the messaging would be different. Obviously, that hasn't worked because Brant Brown's out of a job.
FT is headed to the MLB All-Star Game this year, and there's only one way you should be finding tickets for any ball game. SeatGeek is the official ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, so they have you covered for all of your baseball ticket needs.
I'm super pumped to hit the Futures game this year. That new skills competition looks electric.
I agree, Kratz. It's like the Olympics for baseball. Cannot wait to see that. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. Baseball season's in full swing, and you don't want to miss out. SeatGeek has your tickets to every game and, of course, concerts, festivals, and more.
Every ticket's backed by their buyer guarantee, and SeatGeek is the only site that lets you return your tickets ahead of the event with swaps.
And Kratz, you know FT came through for the people. Use our code FOUL for $20 off tickets at SeatGeek. That's $20 off your first purchase with promo code FOUL. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app, please.
All right. And we are joined by an incredibly backlit Ryan Divish. Hi, Ryan.
What's up? Sorry about the backlighting.
Yeah, you look like you're in the witness protection program. Like we're interviewing you for a very sensitive documentary, and you can't have anyone recognize your face.
Oh, well, I mean, like I'm doing everybody that's watching a favor if you can't see my face. So I'm happy to talk to Scott Service's favorite beat writer of all time, his favorite reporter who loves.
Thank you.
He loves you. No, yeah.
Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate that.
Yeah, Hannah is Scott's favorite. So if you ever want Scott on the show, just have Hannah co-host. He'll come on because he loves her. He tells her everything, and he tells us nothing. He just stares at her.
Wow.
I wish I could say that wasn't true and be all humble about it, but actually, Scott does love me. So
yeah, it's
wait,
amazing.
whoa! I need backstory here. You can't just be like, "Oh, somebody loves me." Now I need to know why. What'd you do?
No backstory. You know what I did? I flew all the way to Seattle, which national baseball writers never do because it's very far away, and I hung out there for the end of the 2022 season and the end of the 2023 season, and I think I caught him in a good mood. And he loves the pink hair. I'm actually, I might have had to dye it all dark, except for that I knew that it would bum Scott out a little bit too much. So we should, I guess, intro you, Ryan, and say that you are the Mariners beat writer for the Seattle Times, which is why you have such an extensive knowledge of Scott Service's favorite people in baseball. And other than me, he's probably liking his whole team right now because the Mariners are 40-30. They're on a 4-game win streak. They are leading the AL West. I think they have the biggest division lead in the American League right now. That says more about maybe the rest of the AL West than it does about the Mariners. But they've won 13 of their last 17 games. They're a season high, over 500. What's working?
Well, I guess part of it is his schedule right now, but it's pitching. I mean, like, you know, we've talked about it before on here, but the pitching is really good. And when you have good starting pitching, it makes everything else look a little bit better. It's like one of those filters you have on Snapchat or whatever, makes you look better. Good starting pitching will make your team look better because offensively they haven't been very good. The bullpen's been a little banged up, but when you get a quality start almost every night, like last night, Bryce Miller goes 7, allows 2 hits, strikes out 8. It's a pretty good night. So that's been the big key for their success. Get good quality starting pitching. It's been probably even better than I've expected, and then you'll be in most games and have a chance to win late.
All right, you said the offense hasn't been very good, but hasn't the offense just been exactly what they are? Like,
yeah, I mean, like I do think they were never going to be like this juggernaut by any means, but I do think, like, you know, Polanco, he got dinged up and he hadn't really been producing, and Mitch Garver, who I know is a better hitter than kind of what his numbers have shown, and he's starting to show it, hasn't gotten going. And Julio Rodriguez, of course, he's got 5 home runs. I mean, like, that's not what you expect from him. So, like, they're definitely capable of being a better offense, at least on paper, than what they've been. But they just, you know, the strikeouts have been an issue, and that's been the big thing, is like a lot of strikeouts early in the season. I think it's getting better. I think we're starting to see a little bit more, but they really do need Julio to kind of find that level that we saw last season in July and August and September, because they're really he really kind of makes the offense go. I mean, like he's hitting for a better average, but you need the slug, you need the power numbers, and so much of this game is reliant on home runs. And truly, he is their best home run hitting threat. And to have 5 homers, to have less homers than Dylan Moore, that's kind of a problem.
Hey, Ryan, you mentioned the schedule. Let the White Sox win one today, huh? I mean, the rest of the division is down, so feel free to let the White Sox, sneak one out today, maybe, please, pretty please.
AJ, that's a bad team, and I've watched the A's play the last few years. I mean, I've watched the A's play the last few years.
Bad is being nice. Bad is being nice, okay?
I was
worse whatever the worst is, that's what they are. But just let them sneak in one so they get some confidence up before they go to, I think they go to Arizona next. So let them get some confidence up.
I mean, they got, Fetty was good the other day, and Cannon was good yesterday. I mean, he went 6 shutout before giving up the bomb to Luke Raleigh. I remember we were sitting at spring training, and Mariners opened with the White Sox, and then we saw them later. And I remember looking at the other writers, and I said, this team is effing terrible. And that's when they had Jimenez and Moncada in the lineup. And I was like, this is awful. And so, yeah, I feel bad. I really like guys like Chris Flexen is a good dude, and it's given an opportunity to play. But it's like when they trade some of these pieces, if they trade Luis Robert, if they trade Crochet and Fetty, I mean, like, they don't have a good farm system. So what's that team going to look like after the deadline? I mean, that's going to be really tough to watch. And what's crazy is how bad that team is will influence some of the postseason. I mean, like, you're talking about the division games in an AL Central that's pretty close. You're wondering who's going to play the White Sox the most at the end of the season.
Yeah, they're definitely going to influence that for sure. Back to the Mariners, besides a pitcher, you can't choose any pitchers. Who's the MVP of this team? Who am I missing? Because if I just look at the stats, OPS, let's just not look at OPS of these guys. Who is the MVP of this team overall?
And I'm not placating to you guys, and I was a catcher in my crappy NAI school in North Dakota, but Cal Raleigh's been their most valuable player. And you would ask the players, and they would say that because he runs the pitching staff, because he does all the work and all the details, and because he gets every big hit that they need him to get. He's got 1,000 OPS right now in late and close situations. The batting average isn't pretty, and he strikes out a lot. But, in terms of a leader on this team and, a guy that demands respect, Cal Raleigh is that guy because he gets the big hits and because he plays hurt. I mean, this is a guy that played with a broken tooth and his face was all swollen up, and he demanded to play. I haven't seen a catcher take more cup shots than that guy has this year. Took a foul ball or took a bat off the wrist the other day. Like, he's really beat up, and he posts every day. And I mean, they're putting him in at DH. He's gonna catch in 140 games this season. And I mean, that just doesn't happen. He might not start all 140, but they bring him in late to catch Munoz and all these other guys. So he's my guy that's been their best player overall.
All right, I got a couple for you because I want to talk about 2 guys you've already mentioned. Julio, off to a slow start again. This is the 3rd year in a row. Every year he's played, he's gotten off to a slow start. And the last 2 years, he's really figured it out. But I'm curious, did they do anything different? I didn't get to see you guys in spring training at all. Like, are they trying to get him off to a hotter start? And did they do anything different, and why didn't it work?
I mean, I think they tried to do a few things different, and I think he tried to do some few things different. He talked about it, wanting to be better with runners in scoring position, wanting to get off to a better start. One of the things he did was kind of change up the setup in his stance and the load in his stance. He took a lot of the legs out of it, and he looked really stiff. And it was a decision he made with his hitting guy back in Tampa, and it just wasn't working. There was no rhythm. He looked, this is the most athletic player on the Mariners and one of the most athletic players in baseball, and he looked really unathletic in the box. And then what happened was he's trying to find maybe what he was doing last year, and that's not easy to do when you spend an entire offseason working on one thing, and then you're trying to make fixes during the season while guys are attacking you. And I think also just how they're doing it, a lot of spin away, hard in on the hands early, spin away, and he's got to learn to kind of, either spit on those pitches or drive them to the right center field gap and force people back into the zone for him. And then like they also brought in Brant Brown, and I think their thinking was like Brant Brown had worked with Moogie Betts and Freddie Freeman with the Dodgers, and he worked with a lot of good hitters, and they thought maybe the messaging would be different. Obviously, that hasn't worked because Brant Brown's out of a job, and he's and that I don't know if it was just about the messaging there, but that was something that they thought might help. So I really, to me, and I think Eric and AJ would agree. Your at bat is your own. Your plate appearance is your own. You got to do it yourself, and so much of it, I think, more often or not, isn't mechanical. It's approach, and it's like, what are they doing to you? And I think learning that even when he's struggling the most, they're not going to let him beat them. You look at the Mariners lineup, and they'll say, well, we can get this guy out, we can get this guy out. But Julio comes up, the last thing they want to do is challenge him and say, look, you okay, here it is. We'll see if you can beat us. No, he's too good. They don't want him on the bases, and they don't want him hitting homers, and they don't want to be the team that gets him going.
All right, Ryan, what you mentioned his adjustments. What were the adjustments he made, and why did he change from what worked at the end of the year?
Yeah, I don't know. It was like if you watched him, he was a lot more upright, less bend in the legs, and then just very minimal load, kind of, how that you load back to get forward. There was none of that. It was just like he went from stagnant to trying to just cook everything, and they thought it would put him under more control, and it just didn't work. Like he was out in front and kind of just knifing off balls. Honestly, some people talk about it, just like find the swing you had in the home run derby so you're catching it out on the front part of the plate a little bit better with your body in a better position. And I think he's been trying to do that. But part of it is like, when you're in the season, you're not getting the pitches that you want to get, and they're attacking him differently. And I think, if you watch, if he can just stay balanced, he's kind of falling all over at times, that's a problem. And then, when you swing at the right pitches and you're not chasing and you're not worried about getting in on your hands and then chasing away, I mean, that puts you off balance as well. So I think that's just kind of been the thing, is like finding a stand or setup and just a load and finish that's more athletic and more controlled without like being so static like he was before.
We talked about it when Brant Brown got let go, fired, whatever it was. Do you have any other information on why he got fired? Was he set up from the get-go for failure, or were they just hoping something would change with the actual people that they had?
Yeah, it's weird. It's like, you talked, and Brant's a different dude. I remember when he first came with the Mariners as a minor league coach, he says some funny stuff and he talks differently. And I think the Mariners wanted that. Yeah, I mean, like, you look at the team, you thought it would be a better fit. They wanted to. I know Scott Service didn't really want to let him go, and I don't think it was maybe his decision because he was very upset. They're close friends, but when a team is striking out at 32% of the time and really showing no signs of getting better in that regard, somebody's got to take the fall, and I guess it was Brant Brown. And really, like, it is weird because guys like Garver and Polanco, who aren't huge strikeout guys but do strike out a little bit, were really bad. And then, the guys like Julio and stuff weren't getting better. So somebody, I think when you're struggling that much offensively, somebody's going to have to take the hit, and maybe it was Brant Brown.
Brent, I'm curious. I want to get your perspective as someone who's covered this team for a while on, because I was there at the end of last year. So like I said, I went out in 2022, made the postseason, very exciting. I remember the end of the year was very celebratory. And then I was there last year because that AL or LEL West race was so close and so tight and so interesting. And the way it played out, they missed the postseason. But what was tougher on the team, just from your read, being in the clubhouse on that last couple of days, missing the postseason in 2021 when it was another year of the drought, or missing the postseason last year after they had made it in 2022? What seemed to hit the guys harder?
Definitely last year, because I think they felt like they had opportunities to do it. And you look at, they started off poorly and then they weren't playing well, and then they traded Seawald away, but they still made that crazy run. in August when Julio got hot. And at one point, they were leading the division by, I think, a game and a half or 2 games. And that hadn't happened, like leading the division in the American League West in August since like 2007. And so, that was a big deal. And then they just kind of cratered, the pitching that they had relied so hard on, I think got ran pretty hard. And then the last 10 games of the season where they had to play the Astros and Rangers, they just, they kind of they didn't post, they just didn't play it up to any sort of their expectations. And I think to be eliminated that close, knowing you kind of could have put yourself in there by just playing better, it really galled on them a little bit. And I think seeing the Rangers, kind of surpass them a little bit with the players they got. We all remember what Cal Raleigh said about the need to add big time players and stuff. There was a frustration level there that was a lot different. And what was crazy is like J.P. Crawford, Ty France, Logan Gilbert, they all had Cal's back. Like, hey, I think players understand what the window is and how close they were, and they took a lot of it on themselves. So I think last year's frustration was high. And it was great. It was funny. Like you start this season and they're 8-16, and people are talking about fire and service and whether or not Dipoto and him will be back after this and all these other things. And then they go on just kind of this run where they get all this great starting pitching and change it all around. But I think, even if you sit there and talk to the players in the clubhouse, they know they need to add. They know it can't be a situation where you trade your closer or anything like that. They need to add to the bullpen. They need to add another bat and kind of take advantage of where they're at. I don't think they expected to be 10 games over 500 at this point in the season and certainly leading the division by 6.5 games. I think they felt like they had a team good enough to compete in the division title, but like where they're at now, you need to bank some wins and add, because a year ago at this time, the Rangers were up 7 or 8 games and rolling, and what happened? Their bullpen got exposed and they had to hang on and just barely make the playoffs last year.
All right, well, since you teed it up, I got to know, do you think they'll add? Like, what's the appetite in the front office to take on maybe some payroll?
Yeah, that's interesting. We sat down with John Stanton, the chairman of the Mariners, basically the guy that speaks for the ownership group, and he said they'll add, but that they'll do what they can to help Justin Hollander and Jerry Dipoto out. But what else is he really going to say? Obviously, going to say that. I do think they're going to add. They have enough prospect capital that they can add a player, a hitter. They need to add a reliever. With Matt Brash out for the season and Gregory Santos still more of an idea than an actual arm in the bullpen. They're struggling in leverage situations. Ryan Stanek's been better. Andres Munoz is battling a bad back. So they need to add a reliever. And they also need to add a hitter of some sort. And what makes it interesting is how are they – what's that position? Is it first base? Is it an outfielder? Where do you add that player in? And we don't really know kind of who's going to be selling. The White Sox are supposedly selling. The Marlins seem to be selling, but what other teams? The Rockies never seem to want to sell when they should. So it's like with the parity in the league and everybody being within striking distance of that third wild card, how many teams are actually going to give up an impact bat? And I think we've also seen that Jerry Dipoto doesn't ever really go with what everybody thinks they should do, they should just add this or they should just add that. He always kind of looks at it differently. So they'll go the trade route. I mean, they did it a couple years ago with Luis Castillo. And I think their farm system now is in a better spot to trade players, to trade prospects, to get a guy to really impact them.
Are they the scariest team to face in the playoffs? You watch them day in and day out, but with that rotation and bullpen, are they the scariest team, maybe minus the Phillies' rotation and bullpen?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to several scouts that say that and other players from other teams that say, last thing we want is to face Luis Castillo, George Kirby, and Logan Gilbert in 3 games, and then knowing that Bryce Miller and Brian Wu, when healthy, could come in as a middle relief guy. They don't want that. You look at Castillo has kind of been a little bit up and down, but we've seen what he can do in the postseason when he finds that extra gear, and they really just keep coming at you. And the way that, I talked to one hitter the other day who just said the thing about Kirby and Gilbert is they're not even the same pitcher they were a year ago because they keep adding. They were talking about Bryce Miller. He goes, Bryce Miller, we just knew we'd wait for four-seam fastballs, force him into the zone, and then try and get on top of it. Now he's got a two-seamer that moves a lot. He's got a split finger. And like the Mariners are constantly, their pitching guys are constantly trying to keep these guys, refining their repertoires and playing the chess game and trying to beat other teams by changing things up. And I think all your advanced work and everything else can kind of go out the door at times when these guys continue to get better. And that's what players just don't like that. They don't like pitching that makes them uncomfortable, and playing against the Mariners, it's uncomfortable. And then if it's a 1-run lead and the Mariners are very comfortable playing 1-run games and you bring Munoz in, that's not a very fun at bat either. It's funny, like when he falls off the mound, I always kind of see the old Mitch Williams falling off to the side of the mound like that. But he got a little bit better stuff than Mitch Williams did.
Yeah, since you're talking about being comfortable and uncomfortable, I'm doing the game on Saturday. So can you tell me who the hell's pitching? Because nobody wants to confirm. So I'm a little bit uncomfortable that I don't know who the starting pitching matchup's going to be.
Yeah, so Wu is out, or they did an MRI. No structural damage. He's resumed throwing. They just, he just didn't feel right coming out of his last start and couldn't make his bullpen. So I think that, they'll reslot him, but probably after Texas. So it could be Emerson Hancock is who would make that start. He's up right now and with the team on the taxi squad. So my guess is Hancock can make that start right now and see. Because I don't know if they can reslot the way they're at right now. So that would be, I think that's Wu's turn in the rotation.
Okay. Well, because I'm hearing maybe Logan Gilbert, but nobody will confirm that. So I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't. I'm trying to get ready for the Buhner buzz cut day today, so I kind of haven't looked at the reslotting of the rotation and what that's going to be. So it's a big deal, and it's kind of the series is important, but I don't know if they're going to slide Emerson in or not, and how that might affect it. I don't know that they'd want to do that. That's a tough ask, even though the Rangers aren't playing well. To put Emerson in back against the Rangers, they beat him up a little bit earlier this year.
All right. Well, follow Ryan on Twitter at Ryan Divish. Say hi to Scott for me. Tell him I said hi. Tell him I hope to see you guys in the postseason. I feel like we might this year. I agree. I think they're a fun team to have in the postseason because of that pitching. It's like kind of iffy if they get there, but then when they're there, they're fun. All right. Thank you so much, Ryan, for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content. We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.